Hello, and today I want to share a story with you of someone who is on the journey of healing from an abusive relationship that they were in for many years. And we did some work together helping her to reconnect to her anger. And I want to just tell the story of that and how that was able to help her reconnect to her sense of strength and also the grief underneath. Because in an abusive relationship, in that context, of course, allowing one's anger is incredibly unsafe and threatening. It's going to be so much fear that it'll provoke the abuser and will just incur more punishment and abuse. And so in that context, he gets really, really heavily repressed. And what that does over a long period of time, that it's not just the repression of the anger that disconnects that person from their own sense of self, their own sense of agency, their own sense of strength, their ability to say no and set boundaries, to feel worthy of these things even. And so this is why anger is so important. When you start to reconnect with it, she was able to leave that relationship, which is, a move of unbelievable strength and bravery in its own right. But in the space that people can hopefully find afterwards, they can start to reconnect to their anger, and that helps them. When they integrate it, it helps them reconnect to their sense of strength, their sense of solidity, their ability to engage with the world, their sense that they can take up space and have needs and preferences and wants and desires, and that it's okay to allow those. It helps you to unfold yourself as a person in the world. Another thing is that our anger can also be a gateway to the more vulnerable emotions that it was protecting. So in order to fully heal, we actually sometimes need to feel the anger, because then we can feel the more vulnerable emotions that tend to be underneath: helplessness, grief, and so on. With that said, let's just get into the short story of this. She knew that she wanted to explore the anger at her ex-husband in this session. So we sort of brought in an image of him in her mind to start to bring up some of that anger. But what comes in immediately is a bit of a protector part. She could feel the tension in her body, tensing to protect against the anger, because obviously it had been so unsafe to go there. And in her mind, she kind of saw, when I asked her what did her mind fear was going to happen, she could have saw his head, sort of almost spitting, angry that he would get aggressive, he would be sarcastic, he would be passive aggressive, he would, yell and get angry as well, which felt really scary. And so this is the protector part that had been built up over many years to protect her from, keep the anger repressed. And it was by allowing that, we just sort of fully allowed that tension and fear to be there, supporting it. And when you help those parts to feel held, they can start to soften a little bit, and that allowed the anger then underneath to start to come up. And then I worked with her to help her actually let the anger express, saying, no, fuck you, those things that actually it had wanted to say for many years but had been unsafe to. And in that expression, again, you don't want to get too much in the mind and the narrative, but in these simple expressions can really help you bring into the body and activate it in the body. And then, when she started feeling the anger more and more in the body, it started to spread and expand. I instructed her to kind of press against the wall, which is really helpful to kind of activate the anger in the arms, the shoulders, the legs sometimes. And so she's there letting it speak and letting it move as well. And in that, what was really cool, as she was staying with it, really embodying the anger, staying with the felt sense of the anger, it started to transform more into a sense of strength or empowerment. And this is what's so cool, is when you actually really allow the anger, you're not repressing it, you're not letting it spill everywhere or getting lost in the narratives of I can't believe he did that and so on, just in the middle zone of just like allowing the rage, the anger to be there. It actually starts to integrate, and that becomes a felt sense of empowerment and strength. You feel more solid in the world. And she was describing that sense of like, okay, she feels like she has a bit more of a sense of agency and empowerment, feels more solid in herself. We then had a little break just to kind of integrate that. And then we sort of explored it again, went back to that same trigger. And this time was a little bit different. This time there was a bit of anger, but it quickly sort of broke and opened instead into grief. So by processing that first wave of anger, she'd created some space to allow the grief to come up, the grief at her situation and all the years spent in this painful, tragic situation. And, just tears of grief coming. And she did an amazing job, just letting it happen, letting it unfold, letting the grief come, letting it just be fully felt. But then after that, there's just a softening. She said she, just feels so much lighter in the body, because carrying that anger and that grief is so heavy that actually when you start to let it go, it's like, just the body, the chest feels more spacious. The body feels lighter. You're not carrying as much tension, because the tension is precisely what's holding in all that anger and grief. And, I'm sure that's not the end of the story for her in the healing from that relationship. But it was really cool to see how, really allowing the anger allowed that sense of empowerment and strength and agency. The felt sense, not a cognitive sense of, I should be more outgoing. It's like you can actually feel it physically, which is something I see a lot when people really allow their anger, and also to allow the grief, because the real healing comes when we allow the hurt, right? That's the real sort of core wound here, and just really allowing that grief and hurt it was just really beautiful to see. And I'm glad that she was, felt lighter and much better afterwards. And this is, again, something you can see over and over, that the way anger and more vulnerable emotions are two sides of the same coin. The anger is trying to protect against that vulnerability underneath. So I just wanted to share that as a bit of a kind of a textbook example of how working with anger and our emotions can be really healing. And hopefully, that kind of thing would have a knock-on effect in her life, of giving her a bit more of a sense of agency and able to continue on her healing journey, and feeling more capable in herself of doing what she needs to do for herself and not for other people. Because people who repress their anger a lot, typically they've been in situations they've had to prioritize everybody else's needs for a long time. And it can be quite a journey to come back to yourself. Okay, what do I need? What do I want? And actually starting to embody that. And actually anger is really useful for that sense of solidity in yourself. Just like, no, I can have needs and I can have wants. That's okay. That's good. So I've shared this with permission, by the way. It's worth adding. And I do help people with this one-on-one. So if you want some support, you can check out the resources on my website, the rest of my channel, where you can reach out for one-on-one work. Take care. Bye.